we want to make our daily job kind of boring in that sense. We don't want to have to deal with the same problem in different ways every single time. So what we try to do on the operation side and also on the tech side is to be very aware of those recurring problems that we face and that we are solving, and prioritize solving those so we have more time on innovation, on new things, and new ways to do things.
Hi, and welcome to Mission Ops Possible, a podcast for and by operation leaders. I am Guillaume, the head of marketing at Forest Admin. At Forest Admin, our team and our solutions are fully dedicated to operations. So we created a podcast fully dedicated to operations too. In each episode, I invite a different operation leader to speak about their vision, their tips, and the stories in the trenches. And on that front, today's guest is not going to disappoint. In this episode, we are diving into the world of operations via the payment platform with my guest, Jonathan Arro. Jonathan is a senior engineering manager at Belvo. Belvo is the leading open finance and payments platform in Latin America, and their mission is to create a more inclusive financial ecosystem. Hey Jonathan, thank you for joining me on this episode. I'm very glad to have you on our podcast, Mission Ops Possible. How are you doing today?
Doing well, Guillaume. Having a great day, great sunny day here in Colombia.
Very nice to hear. Great sunny day also, I don't know if you can see, in Paris.
Okay.
So, Jonathan, before we speak about Belvo, I wanted to hear a bit more about your journey and how it actually led you to operation in Belvo.
My personal journey, it's been a pretty technical one. Software engineer, working on the tech industry for about 15 years. And over the last 5 years, I've been working mostly on startups, most of them YC companies actually, and specifically on fintech. Been doing consulting work, when I joined this startup ecosystem, started as CTO, also as a manager now. And about 2 years ago, we created together with my partner a payment solution, specifically for the Mexican market. And that's when we started also having this talks with Belvo. Belvo was pretty interested in investing heavily on payments, not only in Mexico, but also in Brazil and Colombia. And we joined their team. And over the last 2 years, we've been leading the payments products for Belvo, Mexico specifically.
Very cool. How would you describe Belvo as a whole? What's the pitch? What's the mission?
As you mentioned before, the mission of Belvo is to enable better financial products. So basically, enable for all end users to have access to better financial products. And the way we do that is, at the moment, we have like two branches of products, the ones that are related to data, open finance, and then we have the ones more related to payments on usually alternative or more account-to-account payment rails. For the open finance products, we are actually leaders in Latin America. We have pretty strong presence in Mexico and also in Brazil, where we have connected over 50 million users through our clients to receive, a more inclusive financial products via opening, their data, their financial data. Then on the payment side of things, we have been reaching together in Mexico and Brazil over 2 million transactions nowadays. And like I said, these are being done on account-to-account payment rails, which are, cost-effective for our merchants, for our clients, and also have, higher acceptance rates in many cases than the other more usual payment rails.
How many users are transacting with your payment solution today?
At the moment, over 2 million monthly active payments to end users are being transacted.
Okay, right. And now leaning into what you do day to day, what are you in charge of?
So today I'm an engineering manager for the payments products in Mexico specifically. We have an API on top of the domiciliación bancaria or direct debit product in Mexico. And we do integrations and orchestration with multiple banking partners to enable a more smooth and friction-free kind of integration to direct debit ecosystem for merchants in Mexico.
Interesting you mentioned friction-free because I think like in the payments industry, operations, they are sometimes or often behind the scenes. And yet we see that these technicalities, these operations, they really impact customer satisfaction. What can you tell me about that?
On the friction-free I mean, you're in Europe, it's a bit different. You have more standardized ecosystems for payments. But in Latin America, it's a bit like free for all kind of thing. And you have specifically for direct debit, for example, it's a pretty old product. Like banks have been offering this for decades even, and but they haven't given that much love to making it easy to access for merchants and then also for end users. When I mentioned friction free, is that we put up like a modernization layer on top of those products, on that product, and we make it super simple for merchants to start operating. We have merchants that start operating like one day after signing a contract. They are operator. They already transact thousands of transactions through our platform. The way they do that is through their operations teams, just accessing our portal with very simplified tooling to just access the product. Usually specifically for the case of Mexico, and it's pretty similar for other markets like Colombia and also in Brazil, you will need to have either one operation team with many people just operating different banks, or maybe even different teams for operating different banks for integration for different banks. We simplify that by just integrating with us. The operations teams can only, learn one platform, and which streamlines the whole process. Mm-hmm. And like I said, within a day, already start operating the direct debit product in Mexico.
That's awesome. So you mentioned also that you're quite new, the payments part at Belvo, and of course you've been scaling quite rapidly. So can you take us a little bit through the scaling journey and through the challenges that you faced along the way?
So beginning of last year, 2024, we were doing about a couple hundred transactions. We were pretty new in the Mexican market. We had a pretty strong educational journey also for our merchants, like, hey, there's this very old product, which I know is a hassle to operate, but now it's way easier and also way more effective. And just to fast forward a little bit to what's happening today, we went from a couple hundred in the beginning of last year, ending December with over 1 million transactions per month. Wow. And of course, that's been quite a challenge for our technology, a challenge for our processes, a challenge definitely for our operations teams. And the way we've been trying to do that is to stay practical on all of those fronts. Mm-hmm. If you consider this payments department, let's call it, within Belvo, we sort of act as a startup within a startup. And then we had that mentality for all parts. We had that mentality for operations. We had that mentality for our tech teams. And what we've been doing is staying practical, not over engineering a lot of the solutions, and also just listening to our internal clients and external clients to be, implementing whatever has the most impact, always prioritizing that instead of the nice to haves that you can work on later on in the life of a product.
I see what you mean. So it's a trade-off between this ability to scale and go fast, I guess, but also with something you mentioned previously, which is being frictionless as much as possible. How did you find juggling between both?
Definitely. So on the frictionless part, when you over-engineer processes, solutions, you can become your own obstacle, right? Yeah. And the idea behind staying practical is that you tackle the next most important thing. I mean, you cannot have like 20 most important things at the same time. It's usually way less than that. And we try to have that mentality and to really prioritize what has the most impact. But also at the same time, we are working in payments. And that means that we're moving money. We are, a critical part of our clients' process and products. And we need to act with that kind of responsibility, meaning that even though we stay practical, we do need to have in mind things like in the payments world, you need to be aware of chargeback rates. You need to be aware of, risk management. You need to be aware of, availability of your system on very critical dates of the month. So we try to balance that, always having in mind what's best for our clients, because in the end, we have a big responsibility to be in that critical path for the products.
What was the biggest challenge or most critical moment you faced? Because that's always the case in operations or technology. We always face this kind of moments. Like, what's the battle story you have for us today?
One I guess I can tell is just, we had many of these, especially in the beginning of the product, where maybe we didn't have platform as mature as we have now, sleepless nights where we were being close to a 15th of the month or 30th of the month, which is where we have highest volumes of transactions. And the way this works in Mexico, at least for this product, is that it works in cycles.
Okay.
So if you miss the last cycle of the day, you're just done. You won't be able to charge probably hundreds of thousands of transactions for your clients, and you just need to wait until the next day. And if it's the weekend, until Monday, which is as bad as it sounds.
Yeah. Okay.
So sleepless nights, really trying to prepare everything for our clients on 15th and 30th. It's been a recurring nightmare in the beginning of the product life, but we really built a team of stars, especially in the products, in the operations team. That's true, and we were able to pull it off, automate a bit of the process, and eventually automate the whole process because of their feedback. I think that was the most recurring kind of situation we had in the beginning of the product, just being there for our clients on those critical dates.
So that means like nobody is allowed to go for a date with the wife on that day.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Is there anything you learned during those critical moments that you then took into your operating principles?
Operating this kind of product in Mexico, where we had, decades old financial product and trying to modernize it ourselves. As a principle, the most important one is staying practical and also to make it reliable, something that we can repeat over and over time. We want to make our daily job kind of boring in that sense. We don't want to have to deal with the same problem in different ways every single time. So what we try to do on the operation side and also on the tech side is to try to be very aware of those recurring problems that we face and that we are solving, and prioritize solving those so we have more time to, on innovation, on new things and new ways to do things. So I think that will be a mix of that, staying practical, but also keeping an eye for recurring problems and try to fix those first.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting concept, trying to make your day the most boring possible.
Exactly.
And no surprises. I'm sure it resonates with a lot of people who work in the same kind of roles. Brings
Indeed.
me nicely into the tools that you use to operate. How did you select the tool that you are using, and which tools are you using to make sure that your operations run as smoothly as you described?
As you probably know by now, one of our main tools is Forest Admin.
Yeah.
It's a pretty strong enabler. Jokes aside, we have been trying to focus on supporting our operations team, not on many tools, but for example, Forest Admin, we have been learning a lot about the product to try to centralize as much as we can to support our operations team through Forest Admin. And we have a ton of customizations on Forest Admin to help them. And that is to say that I think it's also important they don't have to jump from one tool to the other to just do their daily work. They try to just stay on one.
Yeah, so you bring the complexity to one tool only. That's where you build your customization.
To one tool. Exactly. And maybe we do integrations with some other things, but we try just to simplify that entry point to all those. We use some LLM tools. We use some just in-house built automatizations that we make available through Jupyter Notebook, or it could be also through an integration with Forest Admin. I think those are the main ones. Some very specific things we just do with Google Sheets and stuff like that.
Okay.
So we try to keep it pretty simple. We do some integrations also with orchestration tooling like Zapier to make things just easier. And for the new tooling, internally within Belvo, we have hackathons, we have, just innovation sprints and stuff like that, where we try to refurbish our processes as often as possible.
Something we see also with other customers, the idea is not to sit on your stack and forget about it, but also make sure that it's moving along with you, right?
Exactly.
Great. I don't want to turn this into a case studies for Forest Admin, but I think there were a couple of things that you mentioned that are interesting. First of all is why you chose to work with Forest Admin, and as your use of the tool evolved during time as you were scaling?
Yeah, sure. There were definitely some pretty technical reasoning behind it. Of course, we also compare Forest Admin with other available tooling. But for the techies out there, we most of our tech stack is based on JavaScript technologies, and there was pretty much nothing else out there that could even compare to what Forest Admin offers, and also the support that Forest Admin offers behind the solution. That was definitely a pretty strong one. Being a solution hosted, or at least in the way we use it, hosted outside our infrastructure, it had a pretty interesting and simple way to handle data privacy as well. We are ISO 27001 compliant company, and also PCI compliant company. And that definitely really, took us some time to analyze. But in the end, we saw that it just helped us, enabled us to keep being like that. And then we have on the operations or on the daily basis, how to use the tool is just extremely usable and just very easy to relate data within, to put together flows, correlate data within the tool, and also to extend the tool. We are learning about the process, and Forest Admin allows us to adjust our process to evolve together with us. Those are the three main reasons we went for Forest Admin.
Great. Thanks for that. I might reuse that and I might quote you on that. Moving away from Forest Admin now, and let's dive into one of the big topics of the moment in operations, and not just in operations. Of course, AI is coming at us very fast, and I'd love to hear what you've been doing with AI, how you brought it into your organization, which processes maybe you already started working with AI on.
Belvo has been really intentional about learning how AI really pushes forward. For us, specifically in the payments Mexico, what we've been trying to do is to apply that for some very obvious use cases. We have processes around chargeback evidence. We need to handle, chargeback, which is the process where an end user requests their refund for the money that they get charged from their accounts. And there's a lot of, evidence processing process behind it. We try to do that with AI. And that really, has allowed us to scale that reviewing process of evidence, way higher than what we started with in the beginning of last year. The other thing, of course, is risk management. We have in place multiple models where we just analyze every single transaction based on our transaction history and some other things on how risky they are for our clients, basically. I think those are the two main ways. The first one more related to enabling our operations team to go faster on something they have to do on a daily basis. And the second one more on risk management for our clients. And that's way more automated, way more on the tech side of things.
Okay. And what was your process as an organization, tech and ops, to really get this going and making sure that this was the right way to do it?
The main thing that allowed us to introduce this so quickly was that, like I said, Belvo as a whole is pretty intentional about innovation. For example, we work in cycles which are pretty short, and after every single one of those cycles, we have a whole week where we bring in these ideas, we POC them, we try to improve a process, and then allows you within the span of a month, maybe even less, to have something new introduced to your process or to your solution. So I think it's more of the company culture that allowed us to make this part of our process so quickly.
Okay. And so do you think there is also a learning curve to this kind of tools that you've been through maybe with this culture?
Definitely. Like I said, I think we're still in that learning path. We have, of course, extremely smart people within the team that, have been doing a lot of suggestions and making changes, not only in the payments part, but also in internal processes we have within Belvo. We're pretty aware that, the whole ecosystem is evolving. This first phase of the AI era, let's say, is evolving pretty fast, and we're trying to stay intentional. But definitely there's been a learning curve. There's been also solutions that we tried to put together and roll out that just didn't work or didn't have the impact that we wanted.
Like what?
And
do you have any example on that?
I think a pretty clear example was on building models to support some part of our processes. So one is risk management, but there are other areas of the flow that transaction goes through that we wanted to improve with this to estimate the likeliness of a charge being, successful, these kind of things. You just know that, having AI it's important. Having the right tool is important, but also just having the right data and the right data quality in place also is extremely, maybe even the most important thing behind all these solutions you can put together. And if you don't have both, it just won't fly.
Yeah, if you want to win at AI, that I think in all of the discussion I've had, especially on this podcast, is you need to get the data first. Like if you don't get the clean data, you don't get the first
Correct.
step, you don't go further than that. That's your
Correct.
experience as well?
Definitely.
Okay. All right. Not grilling you too much, but I really like when we have tips that we can share with the overall tech and ops community. If there is anything that comes to mind, I'm always a taker.
The biggest takeaway that you can get from us is staying practical and allow your processes, your people, and your tech to evolve together with your product. If you do that, you'll definitely be in a way better spot. Like, very big companies that might have stronger financial muscle, but then all these old processes where it's harder to innovate and to improve. Or even just, other small competitors and people out there that might just not have the right mentality. So staying practical and for everything to evolve together with your product.
Yeah. And evolve with these thought cycles that you were talking about as well.
Definitely iterate as fast as possible. Yeah.
Cool. Switching to another topic, I wanted to talk more about the people side. Hiring for operations teams. Like what qualities are you looking into? What kind of mindset are you looking for?
Top thing is, for us at least, is people that make it happen, people that get things done. And that means being curious enough. For example, when something is just not going through with the regular process, with the regular solution, with what's already in place. That also means, there's soft skills side to it as well. You're not shy. You don't shy away from asking people for help. You don't shy away from saying you don't know how to do something or why something is happening. That, if you get that out of the way, all that, expectation of someone, a know-it-all that has all the right skills and all the right tools, and you are more open to not being right and so on, I think you will become that kind of get-it-done person that is the best thing you can have, not only in operations team, but in any team.
Yeah, or in startups
Startups especially, exactly. And the other thing, of course, as much as possible, and it's not always possible for startups specifically, is experience. There's something about experience that you cannot just buy, or you cannot just, it will take time. Even if you are the most curious, smart person on the world, we at Belvo are pretty lucky that we were able to find people with over 10 years of experience in this specific field. And apart from that, they get things done. So perfect combination.
This passion to build your expertise is part of this growth mindset that you are describing. So it works.
100%.
Yeah. And I think that get it done, it should be your personal motto, because you've mentioned that today, you mentioned that when we prepared as well.
Get it done.
I will get you a t-shirt, right?
Get it done.
Get it done.
Exactly.
I think that's a great motto.
It's not always pretty, You hear all these stories from founders that, if you can think about your product at the very beginning, you just feel, super embarrassed about how you built it and how it operated and the kind of issues you have. That's definitely how you should feel, but definitely not where you should stay. And this get it done mentality allows you to go through that.
All right. Something else you told me, and I think it's a great concept, and you already spoke a little bit about it. Invest time to make time. I think that's one big part of how you operate, right?
Invest time to make time, because the thing is, even if you have the smartest people, you need to invest a lot of time in educating your own team so they can later on free you from time by not needing you, for example. And the same thing happens for improving processes. If you don't invest time, it's a hassle to just sit and listen to the whole story and see how you can improve specific parts of those stories. But hey, you need to go through that and give it a try to the improvements and see about the feedback, and then, have that feedback loop going on to actually later at some point have a process that works or automation that works. It applies for everything. For us, it's been definitely something we put into practice, specifically in the beginning of the product, where we have to, try to put all the pieces together. We have all these people with great mentality, great experience, but maybe not all of them super tech savvy to get them to be tech savvy. And that took, of course, quite some time. But now we're there, and you can definitely see how it paid off.
Great. You told me again when we were preparing about having a customer engineering team, if I'm correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you explain what it means and how you implemented that?
You can think of a customer engineering team or a customer engineer as your regular support engineer person, but then with way more analytical and soft skills into the mix. We have pretty strong customer engineering team where they're able to really handle expectations with our clients, but also are able to get, an issue or feedback from our clients all the way from a ticket to a feature request, for example, for our teams. And this is definitely makes the biggest difference. It's not only about respecting an SLA for your clients, it's also about get to have a better product. And they are a key part of that kind of process that we have within Belvo, not only for payments, but for all our products. So like I said, customer engineering team will be this person with very high tech background, but that has a mix of product improvement mentality and also some soft skills to just handle the daily life of support pretty smoothly.
How do you recruit for this role? Are you looking for someone who has been an engineer, or are you looking for people coming from support?
We have engineers. We even have people that were just software developers before and then have a tendency to go through this path. If you're able to find those are the best. Like they come from that background, not just a tech background.
All right. I'm getting to the last question I have for you, which is, let's look at the future a little bit. How do you think the fintech op teams are going to be evolving with what we're seeing at the moment with AI?
People mention needing less people just to operate. But for teams like ours, where we have like pretty optimized process, I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case. But whatever the size of your team is, just allowing your product to scale. I think product scale, and it could be transaction volume, it could be onboarding of clients. I see that's where the most impact will be, being able to reach that scale with smaller teams. I do see processes with less friction for operators, and operators being freed to innovate in what they do best, which is, putting together and operating products and operating, organizations and so on. That's where I see the most impact, allowing their daily boring job to stay boring and for them to just be free to innovate.
Awesome. Really like that. Well, do you have any closing remark or maybe any last tip that you want to share with the ops community?
No, I think that we covered it, most of it. Again, stay practical, evolve with your product, and hopefully, as they say at YC, just build products that people want. I think that's the greatest motivator you can have to do your operations, to build tech, and to do anything in this sector.
Well, thanks, Jonathan. I think it's a great final touch for this podcast episode. Thank you very much again. And I wish you a nice weekend because we're on a Friday today.
Yeah. Same for you. Have a nice one.
Take care.